I don't like to admit it, but I'm a struggling reader and a struggling writer. Even after 45 years on this planet and over 3 decades of being in school, reading and writing is still a struggle for me. But perhaps it's not a bad thing. To struggle for something, to experience the discomfort of not finding the right word or the correct pronunciation, or even doubting your ability to stay with a demanding book, trying to comprehend the complex story presented through an endless stream of letters page after page. So if you have ever experienced discomfort or even agony while engaging or pursuing literacy, you are not alone. What's more, the pain is an indication that you are a passionate reader, a passionate writer. That's the real meaning of the word passion. Passio in Latin means suffering. When you pursue something passionately, it will always have a dimension of pain, a pain resulting from a great effort or a tireless pursuit. And you all know this. If you desire to be a world-class athlete or a musician, or to excel in any profession, you know that the effort it takes will cause and bring some pain along the way. And the truth is that none of us were born to be readers and writers. Reading and writing are not hardwired skills in our brain or natural abilities we are born with. Like playing tennis or basketball or driving a car, reading and writing are human inventions. And I don't want to diminish the immense value of this human invention, because reading and writing saved my life, and I wouldn't be here today if I had given up my struggle with language and the possibility to share myself through written and spoken words. And today, I imagine that many of you may feel isolated and fragmented during this pandemic. Perhaps you are too anxious to pick up a book or practice your writing. You may feel that reading or writing is a waste of time, but perhaps reading and writing can also create time. It can heal us, restore us, keep us sane, allowing us to connect on a deeper level. Reading aloud to a child, writing a letter to someone who is alone or neglected, or just sitting down with a book when you feel afraid, anxious, or uninspired can have a tremendous impact on you and others. And that's the true measure of literacy, the change it creates. What truly matters is not how many books you have read or how many pages you have written, but how much you changed or changed others through your reading and writing life. Most heroes in the stories we encounter are often the characters who change the most. And we all know how difficult it is to change. It requires struggle, time, and often much suffering. So if you struggle with reading and writing, don't feel shame, because your struggle is an indication of your passion. It means that you want this. You are not indifferent, neutral, or disinterested. And your efforts, believe me, will pay off. And maybe one day it will be you who can inspire others not to give up their pursuit of literacy. When I arrived in the United Kingdom 25 years ago as a 20-some-year-old student, I suddenly became illiterate. I couldn't read, write, nor speak or understand others. It was painful, especially the first few months. Yes, I could have returned to Hungary where I could speak, write, read, and understand others, but I trusted my grandmother who once told me that when you learn a new language, you gain an extra life, a new existence. When you learn to speak someone else's language, you gain a new existence, often a new family or community. And perhaps this is true for each book we read and the stories we write. They grant us a new dimension, a new perspective. They enlarge or deepen our being because literacy is transformative. This is why in my dissertation project I write about reading and writing as an incarnational, transformative act. And the word incarnation simply means to become flesh. In the Gospel of John, there is a famous passage that the Word of God became flesh and lived among us. Is it really possible that words through reading or writing can turn into life? Because it is not the same to read about, for example, joy and becoming joy. And this is what interests me, how my engagement with words through literacy transforms me, changes me, allowing me to develop as a living being. And all of your wonderful tutors here at HLC are helping you how to read and how to write, how to unlock these superpowers. But what is equally important, and this is what I would like to focus on today, is why should we read? Or why should we write? For me, literacy is not just about reading and writing text. If we define literacy as a meaning-making engagement, helping us to transform information into knowledge and knowledge into lived wisdom, then you can consider other engagements as literacy practices such as art making, crafting, gardening, raising a family, building a home, fixing a car, or even playing video games. When we read, write, cook, clean our house, we are making sense of what's in front of us. We are often making order out of chaos. When reading text on a page, we mobilize seeing, memory, imagination, learn techniques and methods to translate words, letters on a page into an experience. When we write, it's even more interesting as you pay attention to your inner voice or internal speech, the ideas and thoughts emerging inside, invisible and often so chaotic, and you use your hand, various learned skills to make your inner life visible on the page. It's quite a miracle to share our lives on a page, encased in letters and images. So whenever you read or write, think about this, because you are creating this miracle. And what's even more important is that you are the source of this miracle. And the greatest miracle in all this is that with each book we read and each page we write, there is the possibility of transformation. That's what keeps me reading and writing, because of this creative dimension or the possibility for something new to emerge in my life. And as readers and writers, we also use our literacy skills to relate to others and the world around us. The Brazilian philosopher and educator Paulo Freire often urged his students that it is equally important to read the world if we want to understand it and transform it. And believe me, the best thing about literacy skills is that you can apply them to reading the world and to make sense of what's happening around us. And this is so true, especially today during COVID-19. We are all characters of a complex story, facing not only the challenges of a health crisis, but also an economic and moral crisis. And we are not on the same boat, as many would say. Some people are on yachts or comfortable luxury boats, but there are many people who are on improvised unsafe rafts or even without a boat, drowning. But I believe if we learn to be more engaged readers, more thoughtful readers, more compassionate readers, then we can create a world with less suffering, because we will see things as they really are. Literacy is a pathway to a clearer vision, a sensitivity to notice what really matters and how to best navigate obstacles. Lately, due to being confined to my home, I'm spending a lot of time in virtual reality and playing video games. But I also approach and engage with these new mediums as I would relate to books, with an intention to understand and create new meaning, to create wisdom, or to gain inspiration. Since I live far from my home country, I use Google Earth VR to visit my childhood places. In virtual reality, I can move through the streets of the town I grew up. It is still a cathartic experience to stand in front of my grandparents' flat, to pass by the hospital I was born, to linger in front of the elementary school or the kindergarten I attended as a child. I go to the countryside to visit my great-grandmother's house and the cemetery she is buried, and I am often moved to tears. And as I was preparing for this talk, I decided to visit the children's library in my hometown where I grew up. And as I stood in front of the building that's now some sort of clothing store, suddenly I was flooded with memories of how this library saved my life as a child, how it allowed me to escape into the magical stories of Jules Verne and many other storytellers while the world around me was falling apart. See, my parents' divorce was so painful and disruptive that I often spent whole days in the library. It was the safest place for me. and often I was too anxious to read, so I just laid down between the shelves, built a fort around me from books, so I could breathe freely and feel safe. So please consider libraries as sanctuaries. I have a very good life now, but I still go to the public library every week, and fortunately our library is now reopened. I still borrow a lot of books, even if I can't read them all. I find joy just carrying the books from the library to my car and up to my bedroom. It's a form of exercise, I guess. As for video games, I have been playing an open-world exploration game called No Man's Sky. And the more I play this game, the more I realize that it's the perfect metaphor for literacy. See, each player at the beginning of the game is thrown into a hostile, dangerous alien planet. There are no resources and all your equipment, including your life support, is broken. There are no instructions of what to do, so there is a lot of trial and error. But slowly, very slowly, you begin to learn. First you learn how to restore your health, your exosuit. You figure out how to fix a crashed spaceship to go to a space station. You learn how to mine for minerals and process them into useful materials. And as you gain more freedom because of the fruits of your efforts, you also realize that you are part of this infinite universe with hundreds of galaxies and millions of star systems and planets to explore. You meet alien races, but of course at the beginning you don't understand them. It makes communicating difficult, but through each encounter you learn a new word, and slowly you acquire these invented fictional languages. You begin to understand their stories and what they can offer. Also, the game doesn't force on you a specific objective, goal or direction. You can do whatever you want. You can become an explorer, a merchant, a scientist, a soldier, even a space pirate. Or you can just find a planet you like and build your dream home, raise animals, start an enterprise, and so on. But what made me think deeply about literacy while playing this game is the multi-tool you carry with you and the exosuit or spacesuit that protects you from the elements. Again, you start the game with a very limited and broken multi-tool and a damaged spacesuit. This is the reason why everything takes so much time, such as mining or cutting through obstacles. It's like being a beginning reader or writer with a lot of struggles and time-consuming engagements. But as you progress, as you acquire new items and even an in-game currency, you can start upgrading your multi-tool and fixing up your exosuit. You can install new technologies that will grant you all these special powers and abilities, so you can safely walk around and explore the harshest planet without dying from radiation or other interstellar calamities. And suddenly you realize that you have this amazing fictional world where you can escape, make friends, or just spend time traveling, discovering plants and animals, or learning fictional languages because you acquired the necessary skills and knowledge. And all this happens through playing a game. And this is what I love about video games. They combine learning and play. And to conclude this talk, I leave you with another story about playing. A famous violinist, Itzhak Perlman, was giving a solo performance in a large concert hall. Hundreds of people were in the audience, as it was a true privilege to see the maestro performing. But during the performance, a string on Perlman's violin snapped. You could just feel that this suddenly changed everything. A momentary silence, people held back their breath. You could have heard a pin drop. What will he do? Will someone just bring him a new instrument? But the maestro turned toward the conductor, and with a smile he made a gentle nod with his head, indicating that everything will be fine, and he continued the concert playing on 3 strings. Yes, he had to reconfigure the music as he played only with 3 strings, but you couldn't notice the difference. At the end of the concert, everyone stood up, but before a standing ovation, the musician turned to the audience and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the challenge in life is to make music from what remains. The challenge in life is to make art from what remains." You can think of the violin as your skills and abilities to read and write, and the music is what you create from reading and writing. Because literacy is a creative act. It inspires us to create something that can be shared with others, bringing joy, fulfillment. It's okay if your instrument has a broken part or if it's imperfect, because our calling is to create from what remains, even if our music is imperfect, even if you speak with an accent, even if you have to look up every other word in the dictionary while reading or writing, even if you are misspelling or mispronouncing words. None of these limitations can diminish the miracle of who you are as a person and what you share and create as a reader, writer, and teacher in this world. And this is why am I grateful today, witnessing both students and tutors creating a better, safer, more compassionate world through the miracle of literacy. Thank you for all what you do, and thank you for listening.